This is a live webcast of The Big M, solving the skilled workforce challenges manufacturers face today. Presented by the Big M event coming to Cobo Center June 9th through the 12th, 2014. Visit bigemevent.com. Now here's your host, Paul W. Smith.
Thanks, Mark Blackwell. Well, the conversation is about the Big M in Detroit, June 9th through the 12th of this coming year. It's a meeting, really, of the minds as the industry comes together to solve real challenges, innovate, and reimagine the world. We want you to be a part of the manufacturing discussion. We'll be broadcasting live from that event, and now you're listening and watching the Big M webcast. We're talking today about solving the challenges manufacturers face with talent acquisition and retention. You can type in questions during this webcast, and I hope you will. You can also engage in the conversation on Facebook and Twitter. Our guests today are experts in manufacturing and the manufacturing workforce. We're happy to welcome Kim Berg, the Training and Communications Manager for Detroit Diesel Corporation. Kim, nice to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Paul.
Janine Coons is here, too, Director of Tooling U SME, where she leads a team dedicated to the ongoing education of the manufacturing workforce. Janine, nice to see you again.
Thanks. Good morning, Paul.
And Amy Sell, Senior Vice President, Talent Enhancement, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Again, Amy, nice to see you.
Likewise.
Here we are, the greatest areas of manufacturing talent needs. This is a problem we've heard about, we've talked about, that now we finally are getting some great jobs in Michigan. And are we going to have the people that can take on those jobs? What are the greatest areas of manufacturing talent's needs, Amy?
Well, right now we're seeing some shortages in engineering, skilled trades, computer programmers as well are some of the ones where we're seeing the tightest issues in supply and demand.
This is something that you can all relate to, and all, if you have a thought or a comment you want to add, please do.
Yeah, I would add to what Amy just said. Those are definitely things we're seeing not only here in Michigan, but across the country in the United States. Some other jobs are in the area of maintenance because the technology and the equipment is becoming that much greater and more complex that the maintenance of the machinery is also becoming more complex, and the skills are becoming more demanding in that area as well.
Some great opportunities, too, from some brand new jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago. Kim, I know you specialize in training and workforce morale. How are you solving the most difficult challenges that you face in the area?
There's a couple of methods that we're using. Internally, we'll work with each of the departments and we'll evaluate where our skills gap are, and we'll work with either an internal or an external source. And then something that we've just started a little more is promoting more of the STEM and getting down to what we feel is the elementary aged kids as well as the junior high age kids, really reinforcing the importance of their math, science, and technology skills, because even a person on the assembly line needs to have all of those skills in order to operate machinery.
I'm a big fan of the FIRST program that we, a long time ago, when Dean Kamen and J.T. Battenberg III and a variety of guys got me interested in this thing. We went down to Florida for one of the championships, and I was so excited to see these kids, and I've said it a million times because it has to be said, we were hoisting kids on our shoulders and saying we're number one, not from the field of play, but from the fields that really are going to matter for the success of our country in this world.
Absolutely. If I could jump in there, and that's great to hear that you had that experience. And I think if you've gone to those kind of competitions, you're very shamed in realizing how talented these kids are, really beyond us as adults.
Yeah.
And it's very encouraging to see what they're capable of doing. But what you brought up, Paul, is something, there was a study that was released earlier this year that talked about looking globally at what are the key indicators of a country's competitiveness. And the number one indicator of a country's competitiveness was access to talented workers. And so, as you said, that connection between the importance of those jobs versus maybe the field of play it's very critical to our country's competitiveness and certainly the industry and our companies.
And I take nothing away from the importance of sports in any way, shape, or form, especially in schools for kids. But we've always been hoisting those guys on our shoulders and saying we're number one after the football game or whatever. We need to do it with kids who happen to excel in another area, science and math and technology.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of how Michigan is committed to the FIRST robotics program. I think right now about 10% overall of the teams are from Michigan, which is a great opportunity. And I know the governor wants it to be 20%. So there's another big investment going into to bring more FIRST robotics teams to students.
And that started with high school kids, if I remember, but now is going into the earlier grades.
They got a Lego Robotics League as well that they're catching on.
Yeah,
There's Science Olympiad teams. I know my daughter participated in Science Olympiad, which in Ann Arbor Public Schools and in Washtenaw County, they had 1,800 kids between second and fifth grade competing on teams, and they all wore the same T-shirts. And again, that energy on the awards ceremony when they would do things like building straw towers or making helicopters and dropping them off a third-floor balcony. I mean, those are the things that really propel kids to think about science and technology careers later on.
Rather than, and meaning no disrespect, I know what it's like to come home and go, oh, what a miserable day I had. The headache, the boss is such a jerk, and whatever we might say, we don't really mean, but we say it. These kids are working side by side with adults who love doing what they're doing. They may go home and say the same thing after another day of the work, but a day working with kids, they're psyched. They're excited to see that somebody else is psyched about what they do. So the interaction between these kids and the adults is spectacular.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
It's good for everybody.
It's great. We at Detroit Diesel, we have a group of, we have a program, AWIM, a World in Motion. So we have a group of individuals, about 50 people, that they've been doing this now for several years. They go to schools around the metro area, and they'll work with them for a year, and they're third, fourth, fifth, sixth graders. And so it's a wonderful experience for not only the student, but also for the employee.
These are very creative kids, too. Let's face it. I remember they had a bagpiper leading them in to the competition ring. They came marching in with a bagpiper. And by the way, these kids learn about working with other people, too, because the very people they compete with, if they have a broken part, these other teams are scurrying around to try to help them fix their broken part to compete.
Yes.
It's really fabulous. It's very good. Janine, as the Director of Training and Development to Tooling U, SME, how important is that employee training in terms of reaching the goals in manufacturing?
It's critical. When I talked about the study that Deloitte did, and they talked about accessing talented workers being a key indicator of a country's competitiveness, we went out and did some research with corporate industry, not only here in Michigan, but across the United States, and asked, how are you doing in accessing your talented workforce? And 9 out of 10 said they're having difficulty, kind of like Kim mentioned. And then you take it a little further and you say, okay, well, what implications is that having on your business? And the top implications were innovation, meeting customer demand and production, and quality. I mean, 3 really big things. So when you ask about how does it relate to business, it's impacting our ability as a nation and certainly at a corporate level to grow. It's significant.
That is significant. In fact, to Kim, we heard you say about the FIRST program and the way that people are involved. But as an organization, how is Detroit Diesel handling the other employee training that enables you to stand above the competition?
Within the last year, we've tried to take a more proactive approach, and we've started to work with other organizations like ourselves in manufacturing, working with educational institutions as well as agencies like the MEDC on programs such as MATS to really to try to, do more collaborative efforts together because we're all facing those same similar challenges. So by being on the ground floor, we think it's going to help us a little bit more than the rest.
Yeah, I'm sure that it will. And Amy, what is the state doing to help develop talent for current and future needs?
Well, and Kim mentioned one of my favorite programs right now, which is MAT Squared, and this stands for the Michigan Advanced Technician Training Program. And we ran our pilot last September, where we have 31 students participating with 11 different employers in Southeast Michigan, and Detroit Diesel is one of our key partners and champions of that program. But this was a very unique system. You might have heard, even in the President's State of the Union address, he talked about the German model and needing to bring some of those employer education partnerships to bear that have been so successful in Europe. And Michigan's the first one that's really done it on a industry-wide basis. There's some other programs around the country where one employer is creating a similar apprentice-type model. But in Michigan, we got a number of key employers together that are competitors in the automotive area to work together to identify the competencies needed for these key technician roles that Janine mentioned. So we have a 3-year program where they alternate between working and studying, kind of a co-op model. 9 to 14 weeks in the class, then 9 to 14 weeks on the job. They're hired by the employees so that they really get customized experiences, and they get the education is paid for. They get a stipend when they're at school. It's an amazing way to address college affordability, as well as to provide a custom-trained workforce for our employers.
Excellent. And then, Janine, how are the manufacturing companies working with colleges and universities to fill those gaps?
Yeah, it's actually a great plan to what Amy just said. A lot of what we're seeing is what Kim described, is that the corporate industry is kind of saying we have to go out and really partner with the local schools, whether it's the university, the community college, the high schools even, and really start to identify what is needed. And I often kind of joke with manufacturers, it's no different than any other supplier. If you're getting some parts that were coming into your manufacturing facility that weren't meeting your quality standards, you'd be talking to that supplier. It's no different in the education system. You have to communicate for the education system to know what's needed in your corporation for them to partner and move forward.
I'd ask all three of you about this. We've talked about grade school even, certainly high school, college. What about retirees? You know, let's face it, we're all living longer, thankfully, or hopefully, and you've got all this institutional knowledge leaving these various companies. What are we doing? Are we doing anything to fill that gap and to maybe still rely on their institutional experience? Either one.
I wish we were doing more, unfortunately. I don't think, as most organizations, it's almost too little too late. By the time you recognize that this individual is getting ready to leave, there's not set plans in place on how to transfer that knowledge, and therefore that has resulted in the knowledge gap becoming wider. It's unfortunate.
Amy?
Yeah, I do think there's a good opportunity there, and I know different groups and people are starting to talk about what are the opportunities. Is there a way to bring back, create more mentoring programs, especially as we look at the huge skill needs that we have and that are expected to increase as our manufacturing rebounds even more. So I don't have an answer yet, but I think I'm going to be involved in some discussions that might lead to better utilization of the retirees and capturing of that knowledge.
And Janine?
Yeah, we're seeing that probably as one of the number one issues, and I will say a number of companies are really coming to the table, like you said, Kim, probably wanting to do more of it, because the challenge is as soon as they leave, you can't go back in time. But a number of companies are telling us 40% of their workforce is retiring in the next couple of years in their manufacturing. That's stifling to a company. And what we are starting to see, though, is this idea of documentation. A lot of times someone who's been doing a job for 30 plus years doesn't even realize the very basic things that they do that need to be documented, because they think it's almost rudimentary, but to someone coming in, it's very key and it's important. So we do a program where we actually go in and do a job task analysis, sit and do job shadowing, and literally document, because sometimes someone from the outside is better to see those key things that are going on in the process that the person who's been doing it for 30 years doesn't see.
Right.
So, yeah, it is something that a lot of companies are tackling now, because the idea of 40% of their workforce going out the door is something that you can't, like I said, turn back time on.
And to go off of what Janine said, we've been one of the lean manufacturing, something that they do, right, is to have job element sheets or standard work instructions. And so we have really focused the last year on doing a lot of documentation, whether it be through the assembly process, machining processes, quality processes, just for those purposes.
Right.
You're listening to and watching the Big M webcast, and we're talking today about solving the challenges manufacturers face with talent acquisition and retention. We hope you'll always go to bigmevent.com for information, but especially to watch and hear what we're doing. And you can type in questions during this webcast as well. You can engage in the conversation on Facebook and Twitter. Our guest today, experts in manufacturing, Kim Berg, the Training and Communications Manager for Detroit Diesel Corporation, Amy Sell, Senior Vice President, Talent Enhancement, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MEDC, and Janine Coons, the Director of Tooling U, SME, where she leads a team dedicated to the ongoing education of the manufacturing workforce. Why should someone attend the Big M event come June of this next year, June 9th through the 12th at the newly renovated Cobo Center? Why is it important for folks to be coming to this Big M event?
I'll go ahead and start.
You start first, Kim.
I think it's a great opportunity to have that collaborative effort with many of the companies that are experiencing the same challenges that we're having, and not just from the topic we're discussing today and for training and retention and recruiting, but also whether just global issues from competition, supply and logistics, machinery tolerances are tighter than they've ever been. We're talking microns. And so I just think it's a great opportunity for all of us to get together and try to work on some of those key common issues that we all have.
So very important, specifically to your company, Detroit Diesel.
Yes. So we're excited to be a part of the program right from the ground up. This is it's right in our backyard. So we're excited about the event.
All right. Amy Sell?
Well, I think it's a huge opportunity for the state. I mean, manufacturing's been a very historical economic developer in Michigan, but even in the country, it's so significant. One of the first opportunities I had a few years ago to go to Washington, D.C. was to go to a conference with the Brookings Institute, and they were looking at the future of the country's competitiveness, and they really spoke to manufacturing and innovation as driving the keys, and that is just such a natural place for Michigan to excel. And so this great opportunity to bring people together, to continue those dialogues, to look at the advanced manufacturing challenges and opportunities that are in front of us as a state is just a wonderful opportunity for all of us.
And Janine?
Yeah, I think it's for all the reasons both Kim and Amy mentioned. One of the things we're trying to do is also bring this idea of business issues, workforce, globalization, sustainability, along with technology, as you said, technology and innovation. And I kind of joke sometimes about the idea that they're so interdependent, and how if you invest all in your technology and you advance your technology but not your people, you kind of basically are out of balance, and you're not able to really leverage all of that kind of capacity that you've built into your technology if your people aren't able to use it, and vice versa. If you're not investing in your technology and your people, then they're kind of bored on the job and they're not really being able to grow themselves. And so the event is really going to tackle both business issues as well as technology.
It's not lost on our viewers and listeners here on this Big M webcast that there are 3 women here talking about manufacturing. Might not have been here 10 years ago. Certainly you wouldn't have been 40 years ago. But you're here now. And so the question has come up, how do women in manufacturing impact the industry? Let's start with Amy.
Well, that's a great question. And I think times are changing. I think
Clearly.
But you see more and more women getting into different fields, obviously. But I think there's some unique attributes that women have as collaboration, teamwork is more and more important. There's studies that suggest, and many people have anecdotes that say women are pretty good team players and have the communication skills to troubleshoot, to think of some of these innovations, to be creative, and all the attributes that are really needed. And I think women do just as well, if not maybe even better, in some of these areas.
Janine?
Well, the stats that regarding women in the workforce in general are over half women make up the workforce population, and yet not even close to that percentage is within manufacturing. So we certainly know, as we look at this idea of skills gap and not enough people in the pipeline coming into manufacturing, women are certainly a population that, for the reasons that Amy just mentioned, have the attributes to come into the field. And I will just say, my daughter yesterday told me she wanted a science lab coat for Christmas. And I was really excited because I certainly encourage the STEM kind of fields and things like that with her. But there is this idea that young girls often aren't. They're kind of persuaded against going into science, technology, engineering, and math. So those are things that we have to change at a very young age.
Very good. And Kim?
It's, I'm a third generation in the manufacturing industry. So my grandfather was part of it. My mom was a part of it.
Mom was?
Yes, Mom worked at Detroit Diesel for a short period of time. So the big joke was Kim came out quacking like a duck, yuck a diesel. And so, for me, I really don't know any other way. And there are a lot of statistics that are out there that can show companies that have women that are involved in the upper management do better financially. And I think it's from some of the attributes, I hate to call it from like some of the momisms, but it's really kind of the caring, listening, challenging type of attributes, team players. So
Yeah, all good. That's all good. Momisms are great. Another one of our webcast watcher listeners asks this question. I'll throw it to all three of you in no particular order, but what are the top skills needed for manufacturing? What are the top skills needed for manufacturing?
In terms of the hard skill sets that are in demand, or the types of like maybe soft skills that people would have when they come in? How do we want to approach that?
it really depends on what the person's going into. Yeah. I mean, when you look at manufacturing, we're a manufacturing organization, but yet we have all of the same type of departments that other companies have. We have supplier management, we have logistics, we have finance, we have human resources, accounting, exactly. We have all of those other, just like any other organization has, as well as machinists and skilled trades and assembly technicians. And so it's a gamut out there.
Yeah, it runs the gamut. And
absolutely.
It's impossible to say just one skill or another. You need all those skills.
Exactly.
I would say math is becoming an area that overall is a skill set that is lacking considerably across a number of different jobs.
Yes.
Math was never, I was never good at math.
You knew it was going to come up, though. Manufacturing engineering.
Once I discovered a calculator, I said, why do I need to learn how to do all this? And the worst part was when I would figure something out, I'd still get points off because they didn't do it the way they wanted it done. And I said, wait a minute, isn't that the answer? And they say, yes. Well, what do you mean half off? I never quite understood that. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing today.
But when we did the Governor's Economic Summit back in March, and this question was posed to all the employers, what are the key skills that you need? And one of the big takeaways was that soft skills or employability skills was at the top of the list. So even if you know how to do math, without those communication skills, teamwork, initiative, ability to troubleshoot, the employers aren't going to get the full package that they need.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Another question. You know what would be good, Vanessa, if you put like their first name. If you know it, maybe they don't give their names. But another question, as a small manufacturer, what training programs can I offer my employees, and where do I find these programs? And everyone's pointing at Janine Coombs. So you better have an answer, Janine, because it's up to you.
Oh, good. Well, I will take that question. Well, a lot of times it really isn't just particular to small companies. I think it goes across really any kind of company, is a blended approach. And what we're trying to do is we provide a lot of online training to kind of optimize the system. So optimizing your face-to-face time, that's so critical. So it's the idea of maybe doing some of the knowledge-based learning in an online environment through online training, and then when we're face-to-face, doing more project-based, more hands-on work, more on-the-job training. We'll tell people, you won't learn how to do welding just by taking online classes. You have to actually go and do a weld. You would never want somebody to actually go out and start welding without having some of that hands-on experience.
Right.
But taking the time to really use the tools that are out there, the innovative ways of learning, and leveraging that whole system really through a blended kind of environment is what we kind of recommend to small and large companies.
We use a blended environment. We start off with web classes when we can. It provides everybody with the same base knowledge. And then you get to the instructor-led classes where they have to apply some of the skills, not only that they learned in the web class, but also additional skills they'll learn in instructor-led. It's about the application of what their knowledge is.
And what's really interesting that I'll say is we've also been taking that same concept into the schools, not into middle schools, high schools, community colleges, where if you think of, at least I know when I went to school, a lot of your time in class was a lecture-based program, and then you went home and you tried to do your homework. So even in high school, and then you're asking your parents, hey, can you help me with my project? And they're kind of looking at you saying, I don't know how to help you. But the idea of flipping the classroom where the lecture is replaced with an online class at night, and that's the homework. So I'm more at home, just kind of take my online class, and then I can go in and ask the questions and apply the knowledge with the instructor, with the teacher, and do that more hands-on environment. The teachers are happier, the kids are happier, and certainly the parents are happier because they don't have to answer those difficult questions that they don't remember.
As much as we'd like to, sometimes we just can't.
Right.
Exactly.
I can't remember the math, right? We got a calculator now, so what are we going to do?
I should never have brought that up. Who are some of the partners involved in the Big M event come June 9th through the 12th of this coming year? And again, you can get information at bigemevent.com, but I can't do that right now, so I'm asking these ladies. Some of the partners involved, some notable companies that are engaged?
Well,
Detroit
Detroit Diesel, right.
Present company excluded.
Right. And Dow's been involved in helping in our advisory, Steelcase, but certainly organizations like MEDC, locally Automation Alley is another important partner, the Detroit Chamber of Commerce, really the Detroit Economic and Development, as I said, MEDC. So we have a number of, and that's what I think is important, is there's so much going on in Michigan and then certainly in Southeast Michigan that we need to bring, as Kim touched on, that the Big M is about bringing all these great minds and activity, because manufacturing is important to our economy.
Right.
And
Sure.
we have so much effort going towards it, yet sometimes we can't leverage all that great activity and share it so people know, because the companies in the end of the day are the ones that we need to help, push our local economy and certainly our country and our operations forward.
Yeah.
There's still time for more people to get involved if there are companies.
Absolutely. Yep. So it's in June of 2014. So
It's June 9th through the 12th at the beautiful newly renovated Cobo Center, the Big M, all about manufacturing, as thousands of people from Michigan and the Great Lakes states are expected to gather at this unprecedented event to celebrate manufacturing. And in fact, at the 13th Annual Automation Alley Awards Gala, Debbie Holton, Director of Events and Industry Strategy for SME, officially announced this premier event. I remember, and we spoke about it months and months ago, and it's getting closer and closer. So if you want to get involved, you should go online is probably the best way to go. Go bigemevent.com, bigemevent.com for more information. Bob wants to know if there's anything new at Detroit Diesel in terms of manufacturing, workforce, and training. Anything new at Detroit Diesel in terms of manufacturing, workforce, and training? Bob wants to know.
In regards to products, for our products, we're getting ready to launch a new in-house turbocharger, which is very exciting in 2014. And shortly, right on the shirt tails of that, in 2015, we will launch our new automatic heavy-duty transmission, which will go in our Freightliner trucks. So we have to be prepared to train our workforce on as well, not just internal, but our also external work, like externally, our distributors and dealers on those products as well also. So large task at hand for training.
Yeah. And there is the new Skilled Trades Training Fund that the state of Michigan has been supporting, and I know that might be a nice opportunity for companies like Detroit Diesel that are looking at, that have training needs both for their current workforce or that are
I don't know. I don't know if Bob's looking for a job or I'm not sure. From the angle, obviously I didn't talk to him, but how are jobs going? And are we seeing our man?
Let me take that one.
Amy Sell comes to life.
good question.
Go ahead, Amy.
Definitely go to mytalent.org, mitalent.org. We've got about 62,000 jobs that are posted. And so we get new ones every day, all levels from the C-suite to entry-level production workers, office, retail, manufacturing, healthcare, all types of jobs that are going unfilled as well. Not all of them unfilled, but there's new opportunities every day, and we still are struggling to find enough people to fill these jobs in these critical areas. So
it was just not long ago at all that we were losing kids to Chicago because they couldn't find a job. Now kids are coming from Chicago, and I don't mean just people coming back home, but people who never lived here are coming here for those great jobs. So it's mytalent.org, mitalent.org for opportunities, and same with Detroit Diesel. You are always looking for good people.
Absolutely, yes, yep. Right on the website, demanddetroit.com, and there's a careers section on there, and we post the positions right there. demanddetroit.com.
Okay. And of course, bigemevent.com is one that we keep pushing and want you to keep going to, not just when we're on the air here, but we're always on the air, actually, at bigemevent.com. I want to thank our guests for being here with us in this series of conversations in advance of the Big M Show. The Big M event is coming to the newly renovated Cobo Center June 9th through the 12th of 2014. Thanks to our guest, Kim Berg, Training and Communications Manager for Detroit Diesel Corporation. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Paul. I enjoyed myself.
To Amy Sell, Senior Vice President, Talent Enhancement, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MEDC. Amy, thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, thanks to Janine Coons, Director of Tooling U, SME, where she leads a team dedicated to the ongoing education of the manufacturing workforce. Thank you, Janine.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Big M webcast. Get involved in shaping the future of manufacturing by exhibiting, sponsoring, and attending. Learn how at bigmevent.com, bigmevent.com. Our next webcast will be January 8th.